it is good to be with you in a sort of different way. What Alex was referring to is I thought it'd be a little easier. We pulled some little stuffed animals out of our house, and I have them sitting in some of the chairs here, so at least I have something to focus on. Some of you would, if you're ever speaking, you would say, oh, if it's just an empty room, I would do so much better. I'm on the opposite end. This is a struggle for me today to speak in an empty room. It's certainly different. And so, unfortunately, my wife my wife has to listen to me talk at home, and now she's once again sentenced to be here to listen to me talk again, so I at least have someone in the room. Thanks to Alex for being here and Jeff for being here with the sound, and it's certainly just a little bit of a different schedule. So next week, I think it'll look different. Here's what we found out. The reason why we're doing it this way is we had this shelter-in-place order, and so we ask our musicians to stay home because we thought that's what was required as we were doing checking. And last evening we received word that no, musicians can be here. It's considered essential. And our churches are also considered essential. So next week we're hoping we'll have some singers and some of our instrumentalists here as well, and we'll have a normal routine. And so we're trying to adapt. We're hearing different things. It seems like it changes every 4 or 5 hours. If you remember last Sunday, we had a wonderful time together. And then we went out to, some of us may have gone out to eat afterwards. And by the time we were on our way home, the number had gone from 100 to 50. And I had texted Alex, like, okay, next week's going to be different. And by the time, literally 4 hours later, it went from 50 to 10. And so we knew everything would be a little bit odd. We didn't know how odd. So some weird things happening in all our lives. As you know, some restaurants are open for carry-out or delivery. And so the other day I just thought I needed something to eat, so I went to a place that offered carry-out. And I hate to say it, but sometimes you get in a situation and you realize that, well, Mother Nature might be calling in a different way. So I went to find the restroom. And I went into the restroom, and then all of a sudden I got stuck. You know how it is now. You realized, okay, I have to flush, so I got my foot, and you do it with your foot, and you maneuver yourself over to the sink, and I got my hand in my clothing because I didn't want to touch anything, and I turned the handle, and I washed my hands not once, but twice. I didn't do the 20-second thing. I thought of the guitar solo of Comfortably Numb from Pink Floyd. That had to be at least 4 minutes, and I got my hands all washed. And I had to, again, they were wet, but I had to turn the sink back off, so I thought I would use my clothing. I got over and I grabbed a towel and I dried my hands, and I thought, oh my goodness, how on earth am I going to get out of here? So I got another towel and I went to the door, and I opened up the door with the material, and I kind of backed out of the door like a surgeon, not touching anything. And I got out to the line, and everybody was staring at me, and I wondered what on earth was going on, and I forgot to pull my pants up. That's a whole different that didn't happen, but it's kind of one of our little quarantine problems that we're having now with all the things, with all the gymnastics that we're going through. It's a stupid dad story. Yes. So this is new. I don't know if I should just pretend there's a room full of people, or some of you who are older will remember this. Go back to the opening of Romper Room when we were kids, and I could say, I see Mary and Terry, and I see Steve, and start going through all the names, but I probably won't do that either. I'm just glad you're here wherever your here is. We're in Matthew chapter 22. Until all this happened, we were going through this last week of Jesus' life. And we'll just kind of pick it up from where it would have been last week. In Matthew 22, starting with verse 34, I'm reading out of the NIV. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. And one of them, an expert in the law, tested Jesus with this question. Teacher, what is the greatest commandment? And Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. all the law and all the prophets hang on these two commandments. This is one of the most quoted scriptures in all the Bible. And we quickly say, love God. But the question is, what does that mean? I think we struggle with this. We know how to say it, but we don't know often how to put concrete actions to it. So we say, sure, I love God, but I don't know what that means from time to time. When I say I love my wife, or I say I love my kids, or I say I love my friends, it should be more than just words. Actually, my behavior changes as a result of me saying that. And I guess what I say is, when I say I love someone, I say I'm committed. I say I'm in it for the long haul. And I hope I bring my best on a regular basis. The text that we were going to read last week was Jesus being questioned about taxes. That verse that says, give to Caesar what is Caesar's and give to God what is God's. We live at a time and an age, and I think we're always this way, but especially so now, we gripe about giving things to Caesar. We go through elaborate strategies to plan so we don't have to give as much to Caesar as maybe someone else does. We make investments or spending decisions not only about what things cost, but about how much goes to Caesar. We live in a place in the country where a little more goes to Caesar than other places in the country. And we gripe about that as well, and maybe we should. But this week, I hope we at least realize that there are people who are working very hard with this crisis. I must admit that. There are people who are spending a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of extra hours at work, because somehow they're connected with our Caesar, our governing authorities, and they really are trying their best. We might disagree with some of the decisions, and that doesn't mean they're working any less hard. And sometimes in our frustration, we withhold what is Caesar's. I'm not talking about we cheat on taxes, but we maybe don't give some of the gratitude that we should. We are very fortunate. We have such an elaborate road system. And yes, they get a little potholed, but we have an elaborate road system. And I know that people are hoarding this as well, but we all have water that flows freely from taps. We have so much that is just part of our assumed life. We have stuff we can be thankful for, including stuff that goes to Caesar. But here's the truth of the matter this morning, and why I wanted to talk about this last week. We also withhold from God. We do not give God the gratitude that we owe Him. We do not often give God our attention that we should. We also do not give to God our lives. Often the thing that gets in the way of that is this sense of security. We let our own sense of control get in the way. We let power and politics and position and influence and money get in the way. And this week, we're all shaken a little bit. We're shaken because our sense of control has been rattled. Our sense of security is a little less than it was before. This is not like a normal bad time economically where we kind of see the storm clouds gather and we see them months in advance and it's this slide downward. We've been in those situations before. We're just the opposite. Everything was kind of flying high and all of a sudden just kind of hit a wall. And it doesn't feel good for us. Some of you have looked at your 401k this week or your IRA this week. And if you're doing that a lot, I would tell you one thing. Stop looking at it. Stop. You'll sleep better. you'll eat better. And if you didn't do something a month ago, don't do anything today or tomorrow. So we're nervous and we're shaken. This is exactly the time we need to trust God. There is some good out there, if we notice. Some of the nasty partisanship, the political bickering, as we're all in line for toilet paper, I don't know why we are, but as we're all in line for toilet paper, there's less of that going on. People are trying to be good. Just the other day, Michelle and I were in a grocery store, and we got into a line, and a man pulled behind me in the line, and then Michelle said, I forgot to go get tomatoes, I think, and she ran off to the other part of the store. I stayed in line, and it got to be I was next to go, and I said to the gentleman behind me, I said, why don't you jump ahead of me? I don't know when my wife's going to get back. And he goes, no, you're there first. You wait, she'll get here. And I said, I don't know that she will. Why don't you get in front of me? And he goes, no. He goes, well, okay, I will. But if your wife shows up, then you jump right back in front of me. And I said, no, you just jump. And he goes, I don't mind being here. I'm just happy to be out of the house. I'm seeing a little more friendliness, a little more spirit of helpfulness than I have in a while. This is a time I think we can trust God. Maybe there's some good that comes out of this yet. The other thing we do, we say we love God, but then we don't yield to God. We don't listen to God's voice. I would ask you in this time, please remain faithful. This is a time that I think the church can be strategic and move ahead. I'm going to ask you to stay faithful with your giving. Please stay faithful. Go to our website. We have an extra, you can give two different ways. You can just give with your credit card there. If you like writing checks, you can mail them. The mail still works. Please. There are great days ahead, especially if we continue to love God. The second thing we to do, especially this time, is love our neighbor. This passage was planned months ago, and it's perfect for this week. And we have seen little bits of people trying to be sure they get what's coming to them. And we've seen some people hoard certain things. But I think it's been maybe less than I feared. Another time earlier in the week, I was at the store for another reason. I was at the deli counter, and I was just wanting to get some lunch meat. And I had a conversation with the man there, and I said, thank you for working. Thank you for what you're doing. And I said, how's it been? And the guy looked at me and smiled. He goes, it's been busy, but it's actually been better. I said, what do you mean? He said, I got to tell you, people have been nicer to me this week than ever before. People have done what you've done. They thanked me for working. People have gone out of their way to be kind. He goes, this has really been good, and I'm thankful for that. There's a reason why love of neighbor is a good thing. Sometimes we think it's just an extra, religious requirement or rule. I hope we've learned something. Love of neighbor is healthy. Love of neighbor is cohesive. Love of neighbor keeps society functional. Love of self leads to breakdown, leads to shoving matches in stores, leads to unhealthy scenes in front of Costco's. Unfortunately, there have been a few examples of this as well. So maybe you'd help me. In the next few weeks, let's be an example of kingdom ethics. Let's not pursue get me what's mine as much as let's pursue, hey, is everybody taken care of? I want you to know that I'm available anytime this week. I'll be in the office. Please feel free to call. If you need to have a discussion, or if you need something and have no other way to get it, I'll bring it to you. Alex will bring it to you. We have means to do it. That's what we're here for. Any need, I don't know if you can do it. Tell us about it. We'll find a way to get it done. Talk to us about it. Let's try, in the next few weeks, collectively to outgive each other. Collectively, we have resources that we all don't individually. Look, I understand it. I'm one of those people, and I know that a lot of you are as well. I try to have my home to be a little citadel of self-reliance. Yes, I have a sump pump, then I have a backup sump pump, and then I have the generator in the garage that I can plug in if we lose power. We've done all of that. I understand why. But we are better together than we are just alone. This is one of the reasons why I have hope, even today. I sense people trying to be good in this. Let me tell you what my last Sunday was like. Last Sunday was good. After church, I felt pretty good. And then I saw it go from 100. I saw it to go to 50. And then I saw it to go 10. And I saw some of the things I was seeing. Last Sunday evening from about 4 o'clock, the time I went to bed, that was my pity party time. I was feeling a little down. I was feeling, I don't want to have to go through something like this. Society's going to lose its mind. People are going to do dumb things. I let myself kind of lean into that and feel that. And then Monday morning, it was over. Back to ready to go. I would ask all of you, don't fear this week. The Bible reminds us that perfect love drives away fear. I used to not understand this. As I've gotten older, I get it at this stage of life. Before I had a family and kids, if I heard a noise, oh no, someone's trying to break in. All of a sudden you have people that you love, there's someone trying to break in. I got to go see what's going on. Used to be, oh my goodness, I might get sick. I don't worry about that kind of thing anymore. That last phrase of what we read in this command is always bothersome. It just doesn't say, love God and love your neighbor. That's not what it says. It says, love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. That's a higher level of love. I'm not just supposed to be nice. I'm supposed to care about you to the same extent I care about me. I'm supposed to be as concerned about you as I am about me. I'm supposed to act in your interest as much as I'm acting in my interest. This week, let's just all be the body of Christ together, even though we're separate or joined in a digital way. I'm already looking forward to Tuesday evening. If you haven't heard, we're going to take communion together at 7 o'clock. Maybe you've gone to the store, don't get a big container, it's a little container of grape juice, you got crackers or bread, I don't care what it is. Tear off a piece of tortilla. We're not going to have the bread police come by, all of it's fine. And we're going to take communion together. Probably only take 10 minutes. Tuesday at 7, join us here, Facebook Live. Your neighbors and friends can join. Tell them. We will not take communion as a physical body, but together as all who claim Christ. We believe that God's table is open to everyone. And so everyone is invited. At the end of this passage, Jesus says something else. He says, all the law and all the prophets hang on these two commandments. See, Jesus here is reminding the teachers what they had forgotten. And it's important for us to remember at times what I think it's easy for us to forget. Behind every rule, behind every expectation, was a greater reality. The problem was they had forgotten that reality and reveled in the minutia of the rules. Some of us remember times when we did the same thing. There was a time when the church knew every rule. It hadn't been that long ago. I remember a time, it was I think 1988. That's just 32 years ago. I was new. I was living in Middletown, Ohio, and they had asked me to run a junior high summer camp. And so I had spent a week at camp and had a really good time. There's probably 200 kids there. And the next week was going to be senior high camp. And I could have these reversed. I can't remember which one was which. But I said, look, I'll come back Monday and help you get going. You see, my wife is, at that time, she was 7.5 months pregnant, or 8 months pregnant. And I said, I am not going to be out of the house another week. I'll come on Monday. So I came on Monday and I got out of the car. The guy who was running the camp looked at me and said, Doug, we got to talk. I said, about what? He said, your shorts are too short. I said, really? He goes, yeah, I have a little rule here. I want the shorts to be so long. I went, all right, okay. And I got in my car, and I started it and backed up and was pulling out, and he waved, and he goes, where are you going? And I said, I'm going home. He goes, why are you going home? And here's my response. I was about 22 at the time, or 23, and this was an older guy. I said, you know, because if you're going to run around here with a ruler, I have better things to do with my time. And I'm going to go home. And he said, well, I suppose you're fine. And we stayed. Sometimes we forget things. Years ago, some of you remember this. We used to go to our car, and often, maybe in the winter, we would pump our gas quickly once before we started it. Yet not for too long, because then we'd flood the engine. Those of you who are younger than a certain age, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Imagine someone doing that now. We would say, what are you doing? Every car is fuel injected. But back then, it was what you had to do. If you forgot the reason why, you would start a whole practice that was unnecessary. We still do that. Way before 1964, and I have that year for a reason, some of us took a stand against tobacco for some reason, still do, not because God will get you or it's nasty or you're evil, none of that stuff, but because we love people and we want you to hang around for as long as you can. We still frown on other things, not because God will get you, not because of you're a bad person, none of that stuff. Just look at all the damage. Your life may actually be better without some things in it. You need to love your spouse. Why? Because God will get you, and divorce is wrong, and you don't want to be wrong. You don't want to be one of these wrong people. No. We want the best for you. We want the best for family. We want a legacy for everyone involved. We know that life does not always work out that way. I get it. I have lived it. So we love everyone. And we love everyone because, well, God asked us to. And because none of us are sinless. This is a reminder that love should be the animating factor of everything that we do. Love should be behind every little guideline. Not for guideline's sake, but because we love people. And we love people all the time. There are times when we had, as parents of children, and we'd say, listen, you know the rule, and sometimes a kid gets a certain age and they'd start going, why? I used to actually enjoy when they'd say why, because it gave me a chance to have a conversation. There's a couple things I had to institute, especially with a son who liked to say why too much, is if I say, dive out of the way, please don't say why, dive and then ask me why. Maybe there's a tree falling. And I know there's a lot that's happening right now. Uncertainty is probably more real now than it's been for 20 years. In the midst of this uncertainty, I hope love of neighbor is a standard that we uphold. And I hope love of God is a constant reality. Let me say something very important. You know, in a week like this, I've probably read more ill-considered things on social media than I have in a while. Now, there's plenty of that every week. I don't think for a second that God sent this virus. God is not pulling some divine strings to teach us a lesson. I think life has enough twists and turns that there's plenty of opportunities for lessons all throughout life. This is one of those times. Our normal routines are gone. We're working from home. We're on an unplanned layoff. We're not commuting. We're not going out to eat. We're not doing our normal shopping. Could it be maybe that one of the good benefits of this is in some ways God has our attention more than God has in a while? I hope that one of the things we're discovering is how many layers that we've built up in our lives. And these layers aren't necessarily bad, but enough layers, and pretty soon important things get blocked. At the end of this, maybe we'll discover there's some things that we just don't need as much as we thought we did. We'll understand what layers are vital and what layers aren't. But the most vital layer of all is this command we have to love. And that command has never been more important than it is right now.